this. Wait. I'll calm down momentarily. Let me ask you something real quick and be honest with me, Kate. Don't you lie to me.
I never do.
Do I have Kelly vibes? Please say no. Please say I do not have Kelly vibes.
Kelly vibes?
Yeah, the crazy mom in this episode.
I am glad this man is dead.
Oh. I mean, you both have really big butts.
Well, now it's got to go on the pod, Kate.
I'm Lester Holt.
Howdy, Holdheads. Kurt Money here, alongside my co-host,
Kateline.
and we are here to discuss another From the Vault.
Here's Keith Morrison with Killer Role.
Now, I have been dying to say so many things about this that I don't know where to begin, so I'm going to do my best. IMDb description. After filming wraps on an indie horror movie, the cast members learn their lead actress is not who she says she is, and has been charged with killing her uncle. Originally aired April 30th, 2021. So, Kateline, what did you think of Killer Role?
I watched this in April of 2021, and I hadn't forgotten about it because it really stuck with me. This is a shorty, but it's bananas.
Yeah. So guess what, Kate? It was not a shorty. Twas a fatty. And I watched the fatty on NBCnews.com, my new savior for original Datelines as they air.
Okay, that makes a lot more sense because when I saw that this was a shorty, I kept thinking to myself, why would I remember this so vividly if this was just like a quick throwaway thing? And I remember talking to other people who aren't you, shocking, I know, about this when it aired. I had a whole text back and forth with some coworkers at the time because this was pretty weird. The episode that I just watched, the short version, wasn't as weird.
It still had plenty. I mean, if I hadn't watched, I'm going to floor you with some of the stuff that was in the fatty that they cut out. And you're going to go, oh yeah! Mm-hmm. So they definitely cut out good stuff, 1,000%. But I was still kind of, I liked this episode even as a shorty, because there was just, I don't know, there were so many segments of it where I was like, whoa, what? Our tale begins in Oregon. Is it 2016?
Sounds like it.
Yeah. Okay, so the episode opens up, and straight off the bat, we're talking movies. KM hops in there.
This is a horror movie.
This was a great intro to this, especially for where it goes. The two people we meet first are a father-daughter director team that do a whole lot of other stuff together, and they decided to write and make and produce their own horror film.
Oh, yes. A horror movie with all its requisite darkness, its spine-chilling story.
Now, right off the bat, I gotta pause and say, Kate, let's talk. I got a lot of thoughts right now. What'd you think of this father-daughter pair?
I wish that I could have had that kind of relationship with my dad. They have so much fun together in all of their creative endeavors, doing music and acting and writing, and it just seems like a blast growing up in that house.
The dad made me feel hella old because he looked younger than me, and he's got a daughter who's like 15 or something. Doesn't he look super young?
He's definitely a young dad.
Oh, they play in a band together, which we see footage of.
And they do stand-up comedy.
Yes. Now, keep that in mind, Kate, because I got something that'll connect all three of those activities. The movie, the band, and the stand-up comedy. Remember that.
Okay.
So they decide they're going to do a horror film, and they describe the plot of it, and the dad starts, and then the daughter cuts him off to say, like, it's about, like, the human reaction to fear. Like, just, the usual nonsense you got to say when you're trying to promote a movie without talking about spoilers.
And it's the usual synopsis of a horror movie. Yeah. It's really just about the human reaction to fear. Yeah, that's what a horror movie is. It's people getting killed and being scared.
Yeah.
It ends up being a movie about isolation.
It's kind of a film about
paranoia.
The human response to fear, I think.
Yes.
They decide to make this movie, but they've got to be loaded, right? Because they're like, we got to hire a writer, a director, a musician, right? They got to have money flowing, right?
Maybe, but it's possible that everybody did this kind of for free or on the cheap because, it's an independent movie.
Yeah.
And it looks pretty independent. Independent.
I'll tell you what, it sounded independent. Am I right? It sounded hella independent.
You mean the sound quality?
Yes.
I don't think they hired a sound guy.
They didn't. And I would have said, keep that mouthy musician at home who kept wanting to talk to Keith. Keep long hair at home. Get a sound guy in here. You don't need the musician.
Yeah.
That's what I was thinking every time he cut somebody off so he could talk.
I could support someone defending themselves
Yeah.
and their mother and their family.
Just how terrifying of a situation.
Yeah.
I was like, you shouldn't even be here.
No boom operator. That is for sure.
No. And they needed it. And so some of it sounded better than others, but sometimes I was like, guys, all this work you put into it, this is an important part, the sound.
Get back to work, you savages!
So this is where I'll say, so when they're going through the team, because KM does like a long table get together with all the people. And, you know, the daughter, father are there, and then they've got the screenwriter, the director, and the music guy. And I noticed upon rewatch that the screenwriter that they hired is also the lead singer of their band that they play together in, and also the guy who was doing stand-up in the stand-up B-roll.
It's a small community.
So Keith was talking it up like it was a real deal. We kept seeing that title card, From the Dark.
Where does performance end and reality begin?
What'd you think of this movie they were shooting?
We've all been there.
Yeah, hey, they're making a friggin' movie. You know what I mean?
It's
And they
fun.
rented, I'll bet you, the most expensive part of production. Most of that budget went to that Airbnb they shot at. It was like a log cabin in the woods. It looked pretty sick.
Unless it was a buddy's place.
And not log cabin. That makes us think of bottom of the lake cabin. This was like a house in the woods. What do you call it? It looked like a hotel, a fancy hotel or something.
Yeah, it was nice.
It was an old chateau near the Oregon Cave.
And we meet a few of the other cast members there. One of which we talked to, and her name is Mig Windows.
Mig Windows tried out for the Valerie role.
Not Meg, Mig Windows. What'd you think of her, Kate?
Is that a real name?
Hey, I looked her up afterwards, and that's what her actor's page says. So,
Because if it's not her real name, and then she's throwing shade on Tucker for using a fake name,
yeah.
sounds like maybe they're all using fake names.
Yeah. Oh boy, and somebody in the Fatty episode was like, and Tucker's not even her name, it's Aisling. And then she didn't go to by Tucker. And then I'm looking at Dateline because there's also a Snapped on this. And Snapped kept calling them Moore-Reid because she had a hyphen name. And KM, like he does with names sometimes.
Very clearly called Doug's Day Diner. And there's Keith running his mouth, not even getting the name right.
Keith.
He's like, no, I'm going to say half that. He says read the whole time, I think to keep it streamlined, but that kind of feels like not reporting.
That makes sense because when I watched this, I thought to myself, I thought she had 3 names.
Yeah.
And she did. Aisling, Tucker, Wyn.
So they're casting this, and Meg wanted the lead role. She didn't get it. But who they did give it to was this actor. Her name was Wyn Reed, and she was knocking the socks off everybody.
They had reached the end of their casting, and they hadn't found their lead, and they were banging their heads on the table. And then Wyn came in and gave an incredible audition, and they knew she was their girl. And Meg was bummed out to lose the role, but she recognized that this girl was very talented.
Game, recognized game.
We thought, wow. Oh my God, like, is everything okay over there? Oh my God, no, they're just rehearsing the scene and they're much better than us.
Yeah, and guess what, Kateline? I'm going to agree with everybody else in this episode. I thought she had it.
Oh, yeah.
I think that Wyn Reed is a good actor.
Very good.
You do? Okay, cool.
I thought the clips they showed of her from the movie, she was great. She definitely has a face for camera.
Yeah.
She looked good.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Because, one last actor we had on here, the magician screenwriter, we were roasting his ass because he's fucked.
He sucked.
Wyn's got it.
Wyn's the real deal.
They go to this resort to shoot the movie at, and the whole time Meg is going, God, this Wyn girl looks familiar to me. She looks kind of familiar, but she wasn't called Wyn. God, what was it? What was it? And she goes to her high school yearbook, starts flipping through the pages. What's Meg come across in her yearbook?
Well, she finds someone named Tucker Reed who looks a lot like Wyn, except blonde.
What was it weird about her? She had an aunt that would do her makeup, and they were kind of like had this big personalities.
And she can't be sure, but she thinks they're the same person. She doesn't say anything, though. She just keeps it in the back of her mind. Until one day on set, when a quote-unquote relative of Wyn shows up to do her hair and makeup, and that's when Meg goes, I remember that lady. that was Tucker's mom. She did her hair and makeup for all the school plays.
Yeah.
It is Tucker.
And it took me right back to high school seeing that.
This was one of many parts where I was like, oh boy, who's this mom? Who's this mom?
And why is the mom pretending to be the aunt?
Great question. And then there was another production that was in the Fatty that I'll go into details about later, but she was known as the advocate / representative for Wyn Reed or Tucker Reed. Not relative, not aunt, not mom, advocate. Okay.
Just making up jobs.
Yeah. So it sounds like we got a real momager stage mom thing going on here. And so Mig puts this together, doesn't tell the cast. Would you be able to act for a week or two and not go, hey, we went to high school together? What do you think?
I think Wyn knew and was also keeping it close to the vest. So if they both know and they're just not saying it, I could buy that. I wouldn't. I am very close with many people I went to high school with, but I don't know. What was the vibe at this school? Had they even talked? Maybe not.
Another reason why she probably didn't say anything, because she also knew another fact about Wyn. And that's when she talks to some other cast members after production has wrapped. And she's like, oh yeah, I knew her as Tucker, but also she's like arrested for murder and is going to be on a murder trial.
And that happened
How about this, Mom?
Before she even auditioned for the movie.
She auditioned for this movie while she was out on bail. So this is flooring information. Because as Keith loves to point out, the character in the movie shoots somebody in self-defense, but thinks it was self-defense, but it wasn't. Hence the drama or the fear that we get to the core of.
A film about a killer, starring a killer.
And so now we are introduced to the shooting. This is the murder this episode's about. And already we're on a wild roller coaster to get here. Like this whole high school connection and, oh yeah, she's in murder trial. I was like, Dateline, you're doing it. You're doing it. Snap didn't set it up like this. Dateline did. And they crushed it.
Of course.
So now we start talking about this murder.
It's rural Oregon, and this Moore-Reid family has a little bit of a land dispute. They have this big property, and it's currently in the grandmother's name. And the grandmother's kids, Wyn's mother being one of them, they don't really get along.
There are 5 kids total, and only Shane and Kelly don't get along. And Kelly doesn't get along with any of the other kids.
Which, when you see her, it's understandable.
Yeah.
I'm telling you that moments before my brother died, he was assaulting me with the door.
She's a lot, and I could see how she has alienated herself from the rest of the family. But specifically, she and Shane are oil and water.
She is a handful. Is she the driving force behind this murder? I mean, I guess we'll get into it, but she's responsible for something. She is cuckoo.
She kept yelling. She's like, what do you need? What do you need? What are you doing here?
And you'll hear it in the interrogation clips when she's yelling at the police.
Yes.
Right?
Terrorized.
Okay, all right.
Terrorized.
And
we
you
were
know what?
terrorized.
The background of this is, and they love talking about this because it's the only thing Kelly has. Since 99, she has been a stay-at-home mom, and they like to point out she hasn't made a paycheck since 99. Now, in the early 90s, she co-wrote a true crime book with her husband called Deadly Medicine that was later made into an NBC made-for-TV movie, and they showed a shot of it in the episode.
Which was later adapted into a made-for-TV movie, appeared on NBC.
Now, you know this Dateline is jam-packed when that's not the biggest thing I'm talking about. Because I started watching that movie on YouTube, I was like, the quality is, it was too awful to even watch or make sense of. And I didn't get the book. I'm like, I don't need it. Like, I'd usually be all over that shit, right, Kate?
Well, that book looked big. That looked like it was like 300, 400 pages.
She was also an attorney in the early 90s. They say like a high corporate level, I forget the term that Keith used, but like she was a legitimate attorney. So that means she like passed the bar and stuff, right? Mm-hmm. And she tried like multiple cases. So she was a proper attorney. But for whatever reason, we find this out from the family, one of the other brothers, that Kelly has mooched off the parents her entire life. And most of that comes from this giant property that they own. Because after Kelly and Dan's marriage fell apart, and Dan's on the episode with his Henry Rollins light neck. Didn't he have kind of a crazy neck? Did you see him?
He did. He was nice.
Oh, I liked him. But he admits it was a war zone in the household, and the kids were brought up in it. And they finally divorce. And Kelly's parents buy her a house in town. Just straight up buy her a house to live in. And so that's where it starts, where Kelly's like feeding off the teat of mom and dad's money.
Listen,
right?
Kurt.
Well, did you not like teat there? What's up?
You and I have also been known to feed off of a teat every now and then.
Yeah. absolutely.
We
I
can't
guess
knock Kelly too much for that.
her only income was from her parents for 15 years. I mean, I could proudly say I'm not guilty of that.
Okay.
Damn, dude. Look at Kateline coming for me over here. What's up? But all this while, Kelly and her brother Shane are fighting, because Shane also used to be a lawyer. Then he stopped to do that to be an antique book dealer. And then he got into some drug trouble, right? Which the Snapped never mentioned. They never said that Shane got busted for drugs.
Is it true? Or is it just something Kelly was running around saying?
That is a great question, because more than once in here, somebody's like, did you hear that? Or is that what your mom said happened?
Right.
So who to trust here? So they're always button heads, and the way that the will was set up, everything was going fine until Kelly's dad, the grandpa, died. He had ALS, and Shane had been living on the property for 6 years taking care of him. And now some people were saying, he didn't have a job either. Wrong-o. He was like the groundskeeper, but also the caretaker. Like, I've been on the outskirts. I've never had to do this, but it's proper work when you got to wipe your parents' butt.
It's a job.
Right? Like, so then the dad dies, and now Kelly starts to kind of go off her rocker because she doesn't have any money. So, the plan was that when the parents died, the property would be split between Kelly and Shane. But it was Kelly would get the house, and Shane and her would split the property value, which was estimated to be upwards of $3 million. So that was the game plan. But then when the dad dies and it's just the grandma left, stuff starts to fall apart. And Kelly is, finance, Kate, help me out here, but equity and like the value of the property is going away because she's using it to get real money to pay her bills.
Yeah.
Does that sound about right?
I don't know if she's borrowing on the mortgage or she's just taking liquidity out of it and reducing the value quickly.
So, yeah, and they have Brian, the brother that's still alive. They have him on with KM, and he's saying, like, basically it was just money out. Money out. That's all it was. And this was taking from, every time Kelly would take that money out, it would take it out from also Shane's end. And so, Shane has a pretty reasonable idea, I would argue.
He does.
What does Shane propose they do so that they could stop fighting?
Well, I was a little unsure of what this document was, but he wants a document drawn up that secures his part of the property and her part so that their money is separate.
Yeah, all he wanted to do, they called it a grant deed, and believe me, we'll be talking about a grant deed a lot today.
This is a grant deed. You're not signing a grant deed, Mother.
But what he wanted to do was not wait until Mom dies. Split the property value right now, and then every time Kelly has to come back to the well, she's got to take it out from her half. That sounds like the fairest of fair moves to me. That sounds so fair.
It should sound like something that she would also want, because while she's dipping from the collective pot, Shane could also be doing that, taking from her inheritance. So it seems like it would be in her best interest too to separate it.
Yeah. What it says to me is that Kelly is very aware that once this well runs dry, she's got nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that other people, like Shane, could still be a groundskeeper. He had stuff he could do. And I think that Kelly was so aware that this is the only money I've ever had for 2 decades now. Like, she knew it would hit the fan. Because it really did. I could see her borrowing that money going, like, I don't give a if this is going to belong to Shane someday. Like, she's like, well, that's when Mom dies. I got to worry about it. And so this would, like, throw off her whole plan. And she also got into this, and she said that she wanted to adulterate the will, which I looked up that word, okay? And it means to, like, lessen the value of something by adding nonsense, kind of. It's a funny word to choose. It's basically waters down an agreement. But it's like, oh yeah, and this thing has to happen. The thing that she wanted to add to the will was that if Grandma or Kelly or her daughter Tucker died under mysterious circumstances, that Shane would be disinherited from the will immediately. What about this, Kate? What are you thinking on this?
Why would anyone agree to that?
Yeah, because it says to me like, okay, when the grandma dies, you're going to accuse Shane of murder somehow. That's what it sounds like to me, right?
Yeah, because even if it's natural causes, she'll try to drum up some kind of mysterious angle and get him in trouble for that. But I couldn't see Grandma signing off on that.
Well, Grandma talked to KM on the phone, and we hear her a little bit in the longer version. And look, she is just browbeaten by her daughter Kelly. Like, she goes, well, my daughter, who was an attorney, explained it to me like this.
Where did you hear that?
Well, my daughter is a lawyer, and she explained that to me.
And it's like, all right, well, this is all wrong then. you're looking at this through the Kelly lens, Mom. So I feel like Kelly could strong arm her mom into signing this stuff because she was just so loud and abrasive and annoying.
Yeah.
And so this is all building up, and it gets to
the day where they want to sign the grant deed.
Yeah.
And to do this, they need a notary. So Shane hires a notary to go up to the property to have Grandma sign the grant deed.
Yep. A notary that he just contacted via text. So he probably got it friend of a friend or like phone book or online. So this notary, she's just coming out to do her day job. That's what she's getting into right now.
She doesn't know the drama. She doesn't know who anybody is. But when she gets there, Grandma doesn't have her ID. She can't find it. So then there's a whole thing of trying to find some form of ID. They got family, friends, and neighbors looking for it. And
yeah. So I guess they eventually find it. But we hear the grandma on the... Because there's recording of this, don't you worry, Holdheads. And you hear her going... like, well, here's my AA card or whatever. Like, or
my AARP.
Yeah.
Here's my USAA card.
So the notary's there for this, and what she walks into, one, she's looking for Shane, the guy who hired her, and all she sees is this crazy woman, Kelly, who's yelling at everybody.
And I'm trying to shut the door, and he's shoving it into me.
This poor grandma that's sitting at the table. And over in the corner there, who's that over in the corner?
That would be Aisling Tucker Moore-Reid.
Yes, absolutely. And Carla is the notary's name, and she goes... Oh, I was like startled by her. And so I said hello, and she just put a hand up, didn't say anything else.
Just puts her hand up, never said a word. The entire time, from the time that door shut, everything was just off.
What Tucker is doing over there is recording this on her cell phone.
Recording video.
So as we talk about what goes down right now, for the most part, we see it live and in person, right?
It really feels like we're right in the room with them.
It sure does. I guess I say that because Kelly acted so insane, I would feel like I was being unfair to her in the retelling of this. But she did act insane.
Yes.
Day of. You can hear it for yourself.
She's not signing a grant deed. It's her property.
So everybody's screaming. And then the notary sees a guy outside going, oh, maybe that's Shane. Let's get him in here. Because he's just like walking slowly around the property, which we also see on video. And he's not creeping. I mean, one, he lives on the property. So that's why he's there originally.
And he's not going inside because he doesn't want to be near Kelly.
And he can't be near Kelly because there's a no contact order because charges pressed by Tucker. Now, I've got the deets on this. This was cut out of the shorty.
Shane picked up a plastic quart of oil and threw it back towards the front door, which was closed.
Anyway, it went through the screen door and supposedly hit her in the head and knocked her down. And this is... She's pressing charges on her uncle for trying to kill her. And I'm rolling my friggin' eyes right now, Kate. What about you? How you feeling about this charge?
I think Kelly told her to do that so that if he was in prison, they could get the property.
Yeah. And when you're talking about this in broad strokes, it is true that there were charges placed against him for assault. But then you hear the details and you're like, well, that's not the assault I was thinking. Like, I thought he's hitting her or something. Or something worse. Like, he threw something at her. Like, this feels like family drama to me. I don't know.
He threw something at her, and it sounds like she was behind a screen door. So he wasn't trying to actually hit her. He knew the screen was there. He was just mad.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's where all that stems from. Those charges, and I guess Shane wanted her to drop them, obviously, but Tucker's like, nope, not doing it. So here we are, we're at the day of. So Shane's outside, and the notary's like, well, she's wanting him to come in so we could do this. And this is when Kelly starts ranting and raving because she thought she was here to sign a will. So we hear both Kelly and Tucker going, we're here to sign a will, not a grant deed, not a grant deed. A will, a will, a will. And the notary, all she's trying to do is talk to that grandma. So we're watching the cell phone with Tucker, who's got the POV. And all of a sudden she goes, God damn it.
He's coming into the house. Damn it.
He's coming in. He's coming in.
You son of a bitch.
And then there's a blur. And then we see.
And here, just for a moment, you can see the gun in Tucker's hand.
In Tucker's hand. So she is multi-talented, okay?
Yes. She's she's holding her cell phone, filming everything in one hand, and holding a gun in the other.
Yes.
Very talented.
Yes. Okay, so, and she starts screaming that Shane, her uncle's trying to break through the front door and attack her mom. And all we hear is Kelly yelling at him not to come in. We see him 10 feet away from the door. We never see him anywhere near the door.
No, he's not trying to come in.
No. Because they even say, like, it's not like they didn't expect him to show up for this, right? I mean, this was his deal as well.
Right. And also, he doesn't want to be hanging out with them any longer than he has to be.
No.
But the notary, she actually can't see him from where she's sitting. So she wasn't an eyewitness to him not coming in.
Right.
She never saw him attempting to come in. She didn't really see any of that.
That's a good point. The only person we heard that from was Kelly when she said, my brother tried to kill me with the door.
Right. But it's her word against everyone else's.
And now is when you're going to hear the story of why Carla Triver is today's All-Star.
And she goes, are you sure this isn't a will? And I was like, it's not a will. And she grabbed the paper out of my hand. She read it and tore it up in pieces.
We got to give her the All-Star because she is I just love that she's just a normal, calm person trying to do her job. And what she is forced into repeatedly and tries to get out of and can't.
In my head, I went, oh my God, that's a 38.
So this gun goes off. Everybody starts flipping out. She doesn't know what's going on. She's got she pulls out her cell phone. She's trying to call 911. She goes to Kelly, who's just standing there, and she goes, here, call 911. Kelly steps back and puts her hands up and says, no.
And I said, oh my God, you need to help me, call 911. And she goes, no. And the phone dropped on the floor.
So we're shocked at this point. Like, what the hell? And then the notary's going like, I don't know if I'm going to get shot. I don't know where the gun is. And she's like, okay. And she's telling Kelly, go in there and get the gun from your daughter. Just get the gun and bring it out here.
I don't remember this part.
As far as she knows, she's the only like middle ground here. So she's like, I want to get this gun and get out of here just for safety's sake. And she says, Kelly, give me the gun. And Kelly looks at her and goes, no. And notary goes, Kelly, give me the gun. And Kelly bends down, squats down, gets in her face, and says to her, I said no.
And she leaned down and got in my face and said, I said no. And I was like, okay.
How about that? That's scary. I'm feeling for the notary right now. That's scary as hell.
And the notary is like, how am I going to get out of here? I need to find the perfect time to make my escape.
Yeah.
And at one point, she said it kind of weird. Like, she looked down at her phone and realized that 911 was on the phone, that I guess she got a signal.
I think what happened was she had typed 911 but not pressed the talk button to send it.
Oh, right. I thought they couldn't get a signal out in the wilderness.
In all this chaos, she sees the phone on the floor, picks it up, and presses talk, or like inadvertently presses the talk or send or whatever. And so then it does dial 911. She hears a dial tone in her hand. I'm chalking that up to just the chaos of the moment.
She's on the phone with 911 and she's trying to tell them what happened, even though she doesn't really know. But she's like, you know what? Yeah. This is my chance to escape. She hands the phone to Grandma and is like, here, Grandma, talk to 911.
Yep. I'm out of here.
Walks out and steps over Shane's body, and she booked it.
She left. She straight up left the scene, which I also completely understand.
Absolutely. When
cops show up in here, there was another witness and she fled the scene. They're going, wait, what?
But I bet she went right to the police because she is not a shady individual. She's a notary.
No.
She probably knew people. I bet she headed right down to the police station to tell them what's up.
Yeah. True. Yeah, and she stepped right over the body, only way to get out of there. She's an all-star because at every turn, Crazy is trying to get her involved. And she's like,
nope,
doing the right thing each time. And she doesn't, I love it when she's like, call 911 and told no. She doesn't, what? Why would? Anyway, I love it. Carla, all-star. And she's visibly shaken on the ep, as Cam points out. Now, I would argue it's because
she has PTSD from that incident.
She had to be hospitalized, she said. So that's true. But they showed her, even now, as we talk about it, you can see that she's a little reticent.
Here, for the first time on camera, and we can see her demeanor as a defense mechanism. She is still terrified, recalling the scene.
That's because they shot during COVID. You see the guy with the mask on. And then we even see, because there's a Bigfoot sighting place nearby too, and there was a little COVID mask on the Bigfoot statue.
Cute.
The cops show up, and Kelly and Tucker, they're going, self-defense. He was trying to kill my mom. So the cops are like, all right, you guys got to come downtown with me. They go to the police station. They are both interrogated. Let's start with Tucker's interrogation.
Well, she's got no shoes on.
And no shoes in sight. Like, would she come in there barefoot? It's crazy.
And this was before she dyed her hair dark, so she's still blonde.
Yep.
She's giving an acting masterclass. She's crying and shaking. and trying to explain how her uncle was going to kill her and had threatened to kill them in the past, and that this was all self-defense. And she doesn't even know how to shoot a gun. It just went off, and she had no idea what was happening.
Yeah. She's like, oh, yeah, I thought you had to cock it first.
I've always thought you had to cock a gun.
And now, I mean, I love movies, and I see guns a lot in movies. I'm not a gun guy, and even I know that just makes it shoot faster when you cock the gun.
But a revolver, a handgun, you don't have to do that.
No, you don't have to do shit. But if you do pull this thing back, it makes the trigger go halfway closer. Anyway, that's why when you hold it, you can go chicka, 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 chicka. The gun, which the mom says was a little thing, and Keith is like, actually, it was a Saturday night special. Which I loved. I love that Keith was like, oh, just a little gun? It was a snub-nosed 38.
And the notary saw that too. When the notary saw the gun, she was like, oh my God, it's a 38.
Yeah.
A little gun? It was a snub-nosed 38, commonly referred to as a Saturday night special.
You're right, because it was sitting underneath a napkin on the table. This gun was there, placed, just in case something went down. Okay, so they're talking to Tucker, and she's crying her eyes out. They leave the room. She's on the floor. She is just despondent. She can't, I mean, she's broken down. She is so crushed. What's going on? Then the cops come in and drop a little bomb on her after she gives this spiel about how I don't know how to shoot a gun. What is gun? I don't know.
What is gun?
And the cops go, all right, Tucker, this is going to sound crazy, but we actually got a call from Shane an hour before you shot him. And he said that you were out there on the property and you shot that gun this morning. So when you killed him, it was the second time you've shot that gun. And what's her reaction?
No.
Well,
that can't be.
That's bizarre.
Well, that's bizarre.
And they examined the gun and saw that it had been reloaded since, because the only bullet missing was the one she shot Shane with, which means
exactly
she was practicing earlier in the day and reloaded to prepare for a murder. That's premeditation.
Absolutely. And she is shook by this in the interview. Like, you could tell she's a great actor. She's not a good liar on the fly, because she is really tripping over the words. And this is so good. I was just like, ooh.
Do you remember saying something to the effect of,
You told me I could do it.
You told me.
Watch the,
Because and we actually hear the call that Shane had made few hours before about how my niece was shooting the gun on the property this morning and I'm scared. And he asks, they kind of talk about this more in the fatty. We hear him say, so I just like a sheriff to come out here. He asked for a sheriff to come out to the property to just witness all this go down because he feared for his life. Now that's in direct contrast to what Kelly and Tucker say. Shane was a raging maniac who said he was going to kill us that morning.
Mm-hmm.
But we hear a calm and collected Shane go, I just like a sheriff to come out here. I'm afraid. Like, they shot the gun this morning, and I don't know what's going to go down when the notary shows up. He's the dead guy saying this.
And the 911 operator for his first call thinks he's talking about his nephew shooting the gun because he's saying Tucker, and that is kind of a boy's name. And you'd think it would be a nephew that's out there shooting a gun. And then he's like, no, my niece. And they're like, oh.
Weird. Okay, well, now I'm listening.
I was hoping I could get a sheriff out here. I'm expecting a notary public to be here at 2 o'clock to 2:30.
But a sheriff did not come out, obviously, because poor Shane got shot at point-blank range. Now, the defense that the cops gave, I felt like I was watching an episode of Fear Thy Nabes. You know what? Cops don't handle civil matters, so we didn't come out.
Unfortunately, we don't get involved in civil cases. That's not our job.
And I'm going, okay, the grant deed, sure, most likely a civil matter. But when a gun's involved...
Yeah.
When a gun's involved, I think it's okay for you to go out. What do you think, Kate?
And he lived on the property, and she was... Like, if she hadn't been his niece, would they have come out?
Ooh, good question. Good question. I mean, you're with me, though, right? That's a complete... Like, that doesn't make any sense that they wouldn't send someone out there.
It doesn't.
There's a person shooting a gun off.
No, it doesn't make any sense.
Okay, so the cops don't come out, and that's crazy. And also, there was a detective that got completely cut out of the Shorty version. There was another detective. And I feel bad for this guy, because he's like, oh, I'm on a Dateline. And people go, oh, really? Because I streamed it on the cock, and I didn't see you in there. And I'd go, guys. I feel kind of bad for him.
To me, I wasn't happy.
Then they show us the interrogation with Kelly. What the hell's the vibe in this room?
Kelly thinks that she's in charge of the police. She thinks that it's all about her, and that she can just steamroll her way to freedom. She's adamant that Shane was going to kill them, that they had been fearing for their lives for a long time. And she's just yelling. And also the camera was really low, where the camera for Tucker, Wyn's interrogation, was up on the ceiling. But this one was like a low angle.
Yeah.
Which made her look even scarier.
And we hear more of it in the longer app, and she's going, cops are despicable and I never trust them. Which, I mean, hey, I get that. But these cops, as we see, are pretty timid and calm with both of them. Both the crying lady and the screaming lady.
It's also not something you want to say to them directly in your interrogation.
Yeah.
I mean, we all think it, but we don't say it.
I have not sat here and called you a liar, have I?
I never lie.
I don't either.
I never lie.
Well, that was clear enough. No liars here.
Yeah, Kelly wasn't keeping anything in because she also slammed her hand on the table and said, I'm glad my brother's dead. I'm relieved. She's saying this to them, and they're just like, ugh.
I am glad this man is dead.
But they hear about all these calls and about the previous number and all this, and so they arrest Tucker, and she makes her bail. And it's during this bail time that she goes out there and gets cast in a killer movie and stuff. Well, all this happens while she's out on bail. And now this is what was cut out of the shorty. She was in, at the same time, a production of a play or musical written by some guy in New York. Okay? And she got fired from that, and it went down crazy on this. She had this whole thing where, one, she would say, like, she kept butting heads with the director and arguing with her. And she's like, okay, my advocate is here. You need to discuss with her our problems. And that advocate, Mom Kelly. And they have the director talking to KM, and it's hilarious. It is so funny.
Was there yelling?
Yes.
Maybe screaming and cursing?
Yes.
Because here's what happens is everybody loves her, but she's very difficult. Okay, so much so that they reach out to the playwright in New York. Like we talked to him too, and he's like doing other stuff. He's not out there supervising the production. But they say, look, we got this trouble lead, but like she's really good, so you should get your eyes on her and see if we should stick this out. And so he hops on a plane, flies to Oregon to see this play. But while he's in the air, the director gets a call from Tucker, day of the performance, day of, and she says, yo, I'm hooked up to an IV, painkillers. I'm on my back in the hospital, so I can't be there tonight. Sorry, y'all.
She was in the hospital, and she wasn't going to make it for the performance that night because she was on IV painkillers.
So this is flooring. Is this ringing bells for you, Kate?
It is.
From the longer one?
Yeah.
And so the director's like, what? I'm picking up the playwright from the airport right now. Like, how could you do this to us? And everything falls apart, and they finally decide, all right, we'll just do a table read that he can sit in on. So they cancel the performance entirely. And so now they're about to do this table read. The playwright's in there, director's in there. And who comes in with an armful of flowers for the playwright? But old Tucker Reid. She's feeling better, folks. She's ready to do the role.
But not on the stage.
The director goes, no.
And we told her that she couldn't perform.
She loses her mind, and they get in a screaming match, and the lady's like threatening to call the cops and stuff. And ultimately, she wasn't allowed to perform, and they straight up told her, Tucker, don't ever come back. Like, you're nuts. Like, you're not the star of this play anymore. That justifies a fatty to me.
It does.
Right? I mean, that's a crazy interaction. And so when all this is going down, this poor director, Keith goes, sounds like you dodged a bullet. And the woman's reaction is, don't say that, please. Don't say that, please. It's not a joke.
Boy, you may have dodged a bullet.
Please don't say that. At that point, it was a joke, but then it wasn't a joke, so.
Yeah. She's like, no, don't say that. It's not funny. That's not funny.
Don't say that to Keith. Don't tell Keith what he can or cannot say.
Great point. Great point. I thought that the notary was doing a great job with Keith. They had a good back and forth. Like, she had some little jokes and stuff. She's obviously been telling the story for the last few years, but I thought she had a good vibe with him. Mm-hmm. I thought they had good energy.
Yeah.
Did she go on talking and yelling at that point?
Oh, she was always yelling the whole time. She was very excited.
So all that's going down during this, and then at first when she's arrested, she makes bail. That's when she goes out and does all this acting. But then when they officially arrest her a year later, there's a bail hearing. And we see footage of it where the judge says, nah, I'm not granting bail. You got to stay. And she literally tells Tucker, if you don't straighten, do you remember what she said?
Ms. Reid, if you don't behave, I'm going to just have to remove you from the courtroom. So you
I can't, I'm going to pass out.
Tucker's like, okay, see ya. I can't handle this.
Tucker starts hyperventilating and panicking. She doesn't even say goodbye. She just gets up and leaves. And then we can hear her screaming bloody murder down the hall.
And we can.
And it's unclear what she's saying, but To me, that's when the moment she realized, like, oh, I'm going to prison for murder.
Yeah.
And if you want to put something in there about returning the security to those who posted bail for her, that would be fine too.
Then she's locked up until the trial, and the trial keeps getting pushed because she does the classic move. My lawyer sucks, I need a new one.
Mm-hmm.
Then they got to inform the new lawyer of the case, and she kept doing this. And then finally this thing is going to go to trial. It's going to start in a week. And this is when the defense says, oh, hey, cops, you know how like usually you get cell phones day of? You didn't collect the cell phone of the lady who shot the gun. Here's her phone. On here is a video called shooting.avi. Why don't you fire it up? Here's the shooting on tape, and it proves that my client did it in self-defense. And the cops are pleased as punch. He couldn't wait to get down to the station. And he's like, when he pressed play on that video, the way the detectives are stoked was cracking me up.
My jaw hit the floor.
So now the video's been introduced. So what do you think, Kate? Like, why didn't the cops get that sooner? Why didn't the cops take their cell phones right then and there?
That's a good question. Because that cell phone footage doesn't come out until a year later. And it's
2 years later.
2 years later, and it's Tucker's defense attorney who offers it up, which, good on him.
Well, for us. I mean, he thought it supported his client.
I don't think I think he just knew he wasn't concealing evidence. He found this evidence, he had to present it to the court.
At least the way Dateline and the cops talked about it, his presentation was, here is proof it was self-defense.
They said, we have some evidence that's going to prove this was self-defense.
So, I mean, it sounds like her goose is cooked. It sounds like she's going down for first-degree murder, and she's going to be locked away for a long, long time. But the DA, in their wisdom, what'd the DA say? They said, actually, you know what? We're not sure if we'll be able to convince 12 people that this drug addict was murdered by this, young, pretty lady. And so they make a friggin' deal.
Mm-hmm.
They fire up a plea where all she gets is friggin' 6 years.
We hear from the other sibling of Kelly and Shane's. He's saying, Shane did have some trouble with drugs, and they felt like if this went to trial, they were going to make him out to be not a great person, not necessarily deserving of being murdered, but they had a feeling that the defense would come for his character. So they felt like this was probably a better outcome.
Yeah. I guess this isn't like the most I've been mad at the plea deal. I'm mad at the plea deal, but I guess I could see that point because they've got this mugshot of him that wasn't from a drug arrest, by the way. That was from when he threw the oil can at Tucker. That's what that mugshot was that we kept seeing. So I see that, I suppose. And actually, what's crazy is, so she time served or whatever. She only has to do a few years in prison. Her first parole hearing was November 24th of this year, and I couldn't find a damn thing about it. I even went to Oregon's prison website to look for an inmate to contact her. I just wanted to see if she's still in the system.
But how would you know what name to search?
Thank you. Exactly.
Aisling, Tucker, Wyn, Moore-Reid?
I did them all. And when I did Reid and Moore separately, they said too many results, be more specific. And I'm like, I would if I could, dudes. Help me out here.
It's got to be her legal name, which would be Aisling, right?
Yeah, because they actually show her binder that the cops made of her, and it's Aisling Tucker Moore-Reid.
Kelly did not serve any time.
No charges, nothing. And
we know that she was the mastermind behind it.
Yeah, you hear on the cell phone video Kelly going, he's not dead. And Tucker's like, fuck, he's not dead yet?
He's not dead? No, he's not dead.
And then we also hear on the footage, the grandma says this didn't happen and she could never see her daughter saying this. But Keith plays the clip for us. We can hear her screaming, die, 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 at her brother who's bleeding to death on the porch.
Listen carefully.
Kelly stood there and yelled at Shane, haven't you died yet, you piece of why aren't you dead yet?
Mom, scot-free though. So I feel like we're on the same page here. This was all planned by the two of them. Whether or not they did it, this was just a plan in the making, I feel. Like this was the logical conclusion of their relationship.
They wanted him dead so they could get the property. They could get all the money.
Yeah.
And I guess they did?
That's what's insane. So the detective was saying, oh, actually, Kelly's not the tough one. Tucker is. She's the one who's mean and stuff. Because Tucker was pissed about Kelly's testimony. That she put the gun in her hand that morning as well. Which really tied in the fact that it was loaded. Here's a fact from another person who was there. And so that kind of sunk her. But yeah, guess what? All that shit that was going to go to Shane went just to Kelly. She's got the house and the property now. How about that?
But Tucker's going to get out of prison and kill her mom.
You think so?
It's her fault she's in there.
Or she'll get a miniseries on Netflix for it and be massively successful. I mean, she's going to be in her mid-30s when she gets out. Won't that be cool for her? R.I.P. Shane.
She may be out already.
Well, I don't know why I can't find any of that parole info out, but you're right. She could be out there right now, conniving something. Oh, and actually, in the Fatty, we get the scoop of why Ryan didn't talk to Kelly anymore. It turns out in 2008, Ryan had accused his sister of mooching off the parents her whole life. And Kelly's response was to come at him with a fire poker.
Kelly had taken offense to that and went after Ryan with a fireplace poker.
How about that?
She's a mess.
She's nuts! She's cuckoo bananas. One of them's going down. There'll be another chapter to this saga.
Oh, it's not over.
It's not over. And now, onto those lists.
Kate's unnamed list. You know, Kurt, I got nothing on my list this time.
Yeah, they played more of Tucker's interrogation, and she did cry and say sorry on the Snapped. But, sorry, we're not watching Snapped.
We're not watching Snapped. Kurt, we're watching Dateline.
All right, well, on to Kurt's Kick-Ass List.
Kick-Ass List.
I mean, my movie stuff was all this whole app. Literally, the first line Keith says is, "This is a horror movie."
This is a horror movie.
And I'm just like, oh, yeah. Here we go.
It was like some early scene in a Star is Born sort of story. Quite a story, that. Worthy of a movie.
Whole time we're talking about movies. From the Dark, that's a movie.
It may sound more like an episode of, say, Succession or Game of Thrones.
And they're talking about how this is like a movie. You couldn't make this up. All the good stuff. I mean, I can't even count how many times it popped up.
Like the plot of some Hollywood thriller. Felt like she had just walked into a scene in a horror movie.
Am I right?
I'm really happy for you.
Thank you.
And I did love this episode.
Okay.
But I do want to put this out there.
Okay.
None of that movie stuff was necessary. It had nothing to do with any of this. It was great flavor, and it helped show her crazy. But we didn't need to hear from the entire cast and crew of that independent movie.
Especially the musician.
Especially the musician. None of that was necessary.
I hear you. And you're pretty tough on them sometimes story-wise with stuff that should be or should not be. But I would argue that's what made this Dateline special.
I agree.
It's because that setup is absolutely crazy that this lady's like, I think I went to high school with her. But wait, the person I went to high school with was charged with murder. Oh, I won't say anything for now. Like, that's pretty wild stuff.
Yeah. And that she would audition for a movie while on bail for murder. And the part in the movie is a murderer.
All right. Well, and on that note, I'm Kurt Money.
I'm Kateline.
I'm Lester Holt. For all of us, I'm Lester Holt. Good night.